In the 21st century, mainline steam excursions are considered by some to be one of the best public relations assets to any major railroad. Dozens of private groups have restored the engines used on these trips to running condition out of a respect for the past and an eye to educating future generations. Sadly, not all the steam locomotives that ran an excursion service are around today. Some were retired for various reasons, or, in the worst case, outright scrapped. Happily, some of the engines mentioned here won't be down for long, as some of them will experience a return to glory very soon. But without further ado, here is my personal list of the top 11 retired steam excursion stars.
Hey! Hold it! This is my top 10 retired steam excursion stars, remember?
Wait, what? Oh, hi Jim. Sorry I let myself go there for a bit.
Okay, I can see why. By the way, your narrated videos are among the best I've seen recently. I liked your top 10 retired steam excursion stars, and top 15 extinct American steam locomotives in particular.
Well, thank you. By the way, I saw your list contained some British locomotives as well as American engines. Did you do that on purpose?
Yes, I did. Nothing wrong with a joint respect for British and American steam, right? Of all the countries in the world, steam locomotives are basically an important part of heritage for the UK and the US, as they played big roles in British and American history and development, and Western expansion of the USA.
I quite agree. Also, do you watch Steam Locos in Profile by Chris Eden Green?
Honestly, who doesn't?
I like the way you think. You know, this could be the start of something great.
Maybe. But now, let's just get on with my list of the top 10 retired steam excursion stars from Britain and America. Number 10. Norfolk and Western Y6B 2174. The Norfolk and Western Railway was well known for being one of the few U.S. railroads that built its very own steam locomotives. And among the crown jewels were their big three mainline designs: the Class J 484s, the Class A 2664s, and the Class Y 2882 Malays. Since World War I, the N&W kept on refining the Y-Class until it came up with the ultimate steam locomotive for what they needed to muscle gigantic coal trains over the mountains of Virginia and West Virginia. The result? The Y6Bs, with 30 engines numbered 2171 through 2200 being built between 1948 and 1952.
Locomotive 2174, the fourth engine of the class, was a little more fortunate than the rest, because in July of 1959, it became one of two locomotives to pull the N&W's Farewell to Steam excursion from Bluefield to Iager, West Virginia. The other engine used was Class A locomotive number 1240. The massive Malay put on a great show as she pulled a passenger train full of people who wanted to cherish the final moments of steam on the N&W and performed a jaw-dropping run-by on a bridge near, High Bridge, West Virginia.
Clever. Nifty offense to Greenpeace, though.
Totally.
But anyway, after the excursion, 2174 was sold to a scrapyard in Roanoke. For the record, alongside tenderless Y6 Malay number 2143. The local chapter of the National Railway Historical Society made an attempt to save the 2174 as she was in better condition. But the odds were against them. They didn't have a lot of time to raise $20,000 to buy the locomotive. But to make matters worse, in 1976, the yard in which the two big N&W Malays were stored fell under ownership of a British firm which had no interest in preserving the American steam locomotives in their yard. And so with this painful and rather ironic decision, the 2174, the last of the Y6Bs, was tragically broken up for scrap. But hope might not be lost, as there's a group on Facebook called the Fans of the N&W 2174, with some of its members discussing the probability of building a full-scale replica of the 2174, so that the last of the Y6Bs will be reborn from the ashes and thunder its way across Virginia and West Virginia once again.
Number 9. Union Pacific Challenger 3967. For well over 50 years, the Union Pacific Railroad has become well loved because of its active steam program, featuring Northern number 844 since July of 1959, when regular steam service on the UP ended and its heritage program began. In July of 1981, Heavy Challenger number 3985 joined the roster, becoming the largest active steam locomotive in the world for over 3 decades. And now, the UP is making railroad preservation history, as Big Boy number 4014 is set to be rebuilt by the steam team in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
However, the very first Union Pacific steam excursion already occurred on the 17th of May 1953, when the Rocky Mountain Railroad Club sponsored an excursion passenger train from Denver, Colorado to Laramie, Wyoming. The locomotive selected for the trip was Heavy Challenger 3967. This was a good call, as the train would tackle Sherman Hill, one of the favorite stomping grounds of UP's Heavy Challengers and Big Boys. Not only that, but 3967 was also one of several Heavy Challengers fitted with smoke deflectors, which already made her look more fitting for passenger service, even if it lacked the Greyhound paint job. The engine handled the train with no effort at all, and after the excursion run, she was put back into revenue service, presumably hauling freight.
Dude, it's a Challenger. Think of them as the world's largest mixed traffic locomotives. Sadly, after being retired, the 3967 was among 103 Union Pacific Challengers to be sent off for scrapping as diesels took over the rails, which were later joined by turbine engines. But 3967's ghost would come back 40 years after the last excursion. On May 17th, 1993, exactly 40 years to the day, 3985 was fitted with smoke deflectors and given a replica number plate of 3967 to do the same run as her fallen sibling, even though 3985 had been converted to oil burning 3 years prior to the run. Though if you ask many enthusiasts, the oil conversion was a blessing in disguise. The 3985 was well known for her pyrotechnics in the 1980s. Since she burned coal, she caused quite a few line-side grass fires, which isn't exactly fun if you're a steam enthusiast who also happens to be a firefighter.
Not at all, man. Mind if I introduce the next one?
Go ahead.
Number 8. Great Western King Class number 6000, King George V. If there was one railroad that preferred 460 10-wheelers over 462 Pacifics, it was the Great Western Railway of the United Kingdom. They built a grand total of 822 460s, divided into 8 different size classes, throughout nearly half of the 20th century, from right around February of 1902 to December of 1950. In physical stature, the biggest of these were the 6000s, better known as the Kings, with 31 locomotives built between 1927 and 1936. Interestingly, there were only 30 Kings in service at once, as engine 6007, King William III, was written off in an accident and got so badly damaged that it was broken up for scrap, with a new King-class locomotive built that would take its name and road number.
The real star of the class was the prototype machine, locomotive number 6000, better known as King George V, and nicknamed the Bell thanks to the brass bell on its pilot. Yep, this monarch of a 10-wheeler, equipped with 4 cylinders, represented the UK in the centenary of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, forming a stark contrast to any American and Canadian locomotives at the fair, thanks to the King's simple and elegant exterior. After the celebrations were over, King George V returned to England and was put to use in express passenger service from London to Plymouth via Taunton, Bristol and Westbury, and London to Wolverhampton via Birmingham and Bester. These were the only lines that the Kings could traverse on the entire GWR system, due to their enormous size and weight. And that's where they stayed, even after the 1948 nationalization that created British Railways, or BR for short. Would you mind explaining nationalization to all the people in the audience who are new to British steam, Jim?
Gladly. In 1923, all 100-plus railroads in the United Kingdom were grouped into the Big Four railways. You had the London and North Eastern Railway, the London, Midland and Scottish Railway, the Great Western Railway, and the Southern Railway, with the last one not to be mistaken with the American Southern Railway. In 1948, they were nationalized into British Railways, or BR for short, and it wasn't that great of an experience. But moving right along, King George V was retired in the end of 1962, having racked up over 1.9 million miles. In 1969, British Rail made a steam ban to keep steam locomotives off of the main line. But in 1971, number 6000 broke that ban, when she made her triumphant return into excursion service, being the very first steam locomotive to run on British Rail after steam officially ended there in 1968. The engine ran proudly until 1987, when its boiler certificate and lease with the owners of the engine expired. After being the crown jewel at the Swindon Steam Museum, King George V is proudly on display at the National Railway Museum in York, having sat on several stall tracks of the turntable in the main hall over the years, to be precise.
Show off.
Hey, I heard that.
Sorry! Number 7. Great Western Castle number 5051, Earl Bathurst. Another GWR 10-wheeler, this was one of a staggering 171 Castle-class locomotives built by the GWR between 1924 and 1951. The previously mentioned King class is actually an enlarged version of the Castle class, which was already an enlarged version of the GWR's 4000 class 460s, which were known as the Stars. Locomotive number 5051, originally named Driswell Castle, was built in May of 1936, and after just 18 months of service, it was renamed Earl Bathurst. After 27 years of service, racking up 1.3 million miles, number 5051 was retired from revenue service as a top-line express engine and sent to the famed Woodham Brothers scrapyard in Bury, South Wales.
Happily, the Earl wouldn't stay there for very long. In March of 1969, it was the fourth engine to leave Bury, after being sold to the Great Western Society at Didcot. In 1979, 5051 came back, and was renamed back to Driswell Castle, even if she'd still run as Earl Bathurst a few times. The locomotive participated in the Rocket 150 celebrations at Rainhill in May of that year, and then it went into excursion service until 1986, when her mainline ticket ran out. This didn't stop 5051 yet, though, as she could be found running around the Great Western Society grounds at Didcot until her boiler certificate ran out in 1990. And even that wasn't enough to stop the GWS from running this engine. In 1998, 5051 was renamed into Earl Bathurst again, and came back from a second rebuild for a second attempt at excursion running.
In the summer of 2003, 5051 made one of her most famous runs yet, heading to Torbay for a special rescue operation of sorts. To give you the skinny, fellow Great Western 10-wheeler number 7802, Bradley Manor, suffered a breakdown. The right-hand bearing on its rear driving wheel set overheated while pulling the Torbay Express from Bristol to Kingsware, on the first weekend of the trips no less. Canceling was unthinkable as the Torbay Express was rapidly selling out. Fortunately, the perfect replacement was waiting in the wings. Yep, the Earl would be going to the seaside to replace its broken-down sibling. After these trips, the 5051 went back to mainline running, and back home to Didcot. In 2007, the Earl made a second epic run in this excursion career, this time stomping around Wales, running from Swansea to London Paddington on March 1st, carrying fare-paying passengers. Using any GWR Express locomotive on this run was appropriate, as the GWR was active in a large portion of Wales, and March 1st is St. David's Day, the feast day of St. David, the patron saint of Wales.
Sadly, in 2008, its boiler certificate expired again. At the moment, restoration is unlikely, as the GWS spent the next 3 years restoring King-class locomotive 6023, King Edward II. And now, one of 5051's surviving classmates, number 4079, Pendennis Castle, is also making a comeback in the hands of the GWS. For now, 5051 has become a display piece at Didcot, but there's no doubt that despite her rollercoaster career and constantly switching names between Treswillan Castle and Earl Bathurst, that this gorgeous 10-wheeler has made a lot of good memories for all who have seen her in action. And what about 7802? Well, she recently returned to steam on the Severn Valley Railway after a 3-year restoration, and the work didn't involve fixing the damage from that failed bearing. That was obviously done back in 2003.
Wasn't going to ask.
Hey Christopher, shall we split this up into 3 parts? I mean, this video's already 16 minutes and about 54 seconds long.
Sure, sounds like a good idea. We'll see you in part 2, folks, so stay tuned.